This conference will now be recorded.
Whenever you're ready, we're all.
Hi, Emily. Sorry about, that's a tough week for you guys. Now, let's go on to teach reports. And call this December 7th meeting to order. Chaplain? Thank you.
Please pray with me. Dear God, Father of us all, we come to you this evening to ask for guidance as the mayor, administrator, council, and staff make and carry out decisions for the betterment of our city and our citizens. We also ask for protection of all of our first responders, police, fire, for ours. We are grateful to know that the vaccine is soon to become available to locally end the terrible Chinese virus. We are also grateful to all in our County Health Department for their tireless efforts in keeping our country safe. Let the United States of America, let us do all we can to preserve a democratic republic, keeping in mind all who died 79 years ago at Pearl Harbor and all who fought these 240 years for our freedom. Protect us and our loved ones as we leave tonight, and until we meet again, all this in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Take it, Chaplain. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I now have a service board.
Yes, it's all.
Roll call, please. You gotta do that. That's, what the heck?
Okay, Lehman. Here. Holden.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bobbit. Here. Richardson.
Here.
Cross.
Yes.
Foster.
Maybe, could you come up?
Is she on?
I do not see Foster on the line yet.
Okay. And then Liz.
Here. Amy has been with the city as actually the library for 10 years. She started her career library as September 5th, 2005 as part-time outreach librarian delivering books to hometown teachers. Then on November 15th, 2010, Amy was promoted to full-time college librarian. And said that she has held for 10 years because of the epidemic and in-person programs are currently not possible in Rockford. And so Amy has done an excellent job keeping our young patrons engaged in reading, free, virtual, short times, craft, plus summers and other reading programs. Congratulations. Thank you.
She's also a great girl, Scout leader.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any opposed? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, Chairman Andrew Dawson.
We have two items on the agenda this evening. The first one's regarding a resolution and ordinance regarding the PEP grant, People Energizing Places. At our November 2nd meeting, we approved that grant agreement. What this resolution and ordinance do is they amend the budget so that we can go ahead and pay for that.
Any questions from council? Can you read the resolution?
Resolution 1970,
city of Sedalia, Missouri, authorizing an increase in expenditures in the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021 relating to the cost share for the Missouri Main Street Connection Incorporated People Energizing Places Grant Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any questions on the ordinance? Read the ordinance, please, Orling.
Bill number 2020-212, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021 regarding cost share of the People Energizing Places Grant Program with the Missouri Main Street Connection Incorporated.
Second reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2020-212, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021 regarding cost share of the People Energizing Places Grant Program with the Missouri Main Street Connection Incorporated.
Final passage.
Second. Roll call, please.
Bobbit,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross, Foster, absent, Lewis,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
7 yes and 1 absent.
Second item we have on our agenda is a contract renewal with Blue Tree Technology. It's an ordinance accepting the quote between the city of Sedalia and Blue Tree Technology. What they do for us is the firewall and then the endpoint protection licensing.
Any questions about the ordinance? Orling, you want to read the ordinance, please?
Bill number 2020-213, an ordinance approving and accepting a quote signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Blue Tree Technology LLC for a 1-year renewal of firewall licensing support and endpoint protection licensing for city of Sedalia servers and desktop computers.
Second reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2020-213, an ordinance approving and accepting a quote signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Blue Tree Technology LLC for a 1-year renewal of firewall licensing support and endpoint protection licensing for city of Sedalia servers and desktop computers.
Final passage.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster is absent, Lewis,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bobbit,
Yes.
7 yes and 1 absent.
Public safety, Thomas Alden.
All right, we originally had 2 presentations for scheduled tonight, but Randy Gadsden's absent, we will not be hearing our animal services presentation. So tonight, our police chief, Matthew Work, will give his strategic planning presentation for our police department.
Well, good evening. Try to do this a little bit.
Don't break it, please.
What cops are good at, right? And fine. I'll try to stay close to the mic so I know that there's folks on the line who can keep track of this, but I hate not being able to current look at the audience. So tonight, I broke the presentation down, kind of like I typically do, where I speak of what it is that we do, the services in law enforcement, some of which are not necessarily the most typical services. Some are related to the size of the community, and some are related to the fact of where we see law enforcement as our role in the community. And then towards the end of the presentation, I'll talk about the things that we see as what we're going to do in the next fiscal year, even in the future beyond that. So I break our services down into a couple of different categories, actually 4. Look at the police services. This is what we do every day. This is what you guys would see as the normal police department. Our community engagement, also our dispatch services, and our training. So those are the topics that we're going to cover on what we do. We'll talk a little bit about that. And so those are the basic categories. So first, what are our are the police services that we provide for the city. And of course, why? Well, there's the law enforcement side of it. This is the day-to-day operations. This is our calls for service. This is our response to our the city run-of-the-mill incident, traffic stops, that sort of thing. This is what most folks that deal with law enforcement see as what we do. But it does go beyond that into investigations. That is our regular criminal investigation. This could be anything from a small theft all the way up to a homicide. Of course, also we have our traffic division, which helps with traffic safety and traffic accident fatality investigation. We also have our drug investigations unit that handles specifically focusing on drug crimes. And then we also belong to the ATF task force. That it also is part of the ATF task force, and that is a multi-jurisdictional task force that is based out of the police department and focuses on federal cases. A couple of, statistics for the year. So far, we have ran over 25,000 calls for service this year, and that doesn't include traffic. Almost 900 traffic accidents, done about a dozen search warrants, and we've worked about 75 federal cases. We're averaging anywhere, depending on the day of the week, between 85 and 100 calls a day. We are down slightly from last year. We had a little bit of a lull during the initial outbreak of COVID, and that dip has gone, and we are back on track, good or bad, with our normal pace, and even sometimes above them. So even though the pandemic has sent a lot of folks to work at home, we haven't been. We've been out there on the streets and working through this, doing the best we can with what we come across. One of our other services is community services. It's kind of a broad term, but we look at it from all the different, mainly community events that we're involved in. So these are like special events, which would be like some of the parades, marches, festivals, stuff like that, where we go and work security or we're involved in it in one way or the other. That's part of our community involvement. We're also involved in different programs on and off duty. And then also our community engagement. So far, this has been very difficult to do this year with COVID because, as you guys all know, everyone is trying to stay away from each other. So we haven't been able to have the events that we normally do, but we still have been involved in different events. And you'll see pictures along the way that are in the lower right-hand corner. And I failed to mention on the previous picture. I'll go back for a second. These are some of our community involvement and community engagement events. This picture is Premier Realty here in Sedalia donated a large number of coats for our Cops for Coats program that then we pass along when we work with the Pettis County Community Partnership to allow those in need to get a free coat for the winter. So those community engagement programs, those are designed to be a part of the community and also support the community and work on problems that we in the community recognize. Also part of our community services are social media, which we do things that focus on the community and also problems that we see. This year, our No Shade November program focused on raising funds for the community Santa program. But also our social media program has press releases, things like that. It's a way to interact and engage with the public. Obviously, it's very important at this time in the pandemic with keeping a connection with the public. And then also reaching a lot of folks that the younger folks in knowing what the law enforcement is about and what we're doing each day. This might be the last year that I have this slide up here with our dispatch services, but the police department still does dispatch for the Sedalia Police Department, Sedalia Fire Department, Pettis County Ambulance District, and it is moving towards joint communications with the entire county. There's about 30 to 35,000 calls a year with our dispatches for police, around 3,000 to 3,500 calls for the fire department, 7,000 to 8,000 calls for the ambulance district, and they answer about 7,500 phone calls a month in that dispatch. And those girls work hard and guys and do quite a bit of stuff. But that's we'll talk more about where that's heading as we move forward. Any questions so far? So that's kind of some of the things that we do at the police department, and obviously the reason why is because that's the service that we provide to the community. It's public safety, it keeps folks safe, and it also protects our interests as a community and what we find valuable. So what is our strategic plan? So where are we going in the future? Obviously, I can't cover everything that is in law enforcement for the future, but we're going to look at some of the main points that we want to touch on for the next year. Obviously, in the future of law enforcement is to move towards more non-lethal devices and the use of these. We currently have tasers, but not every patrol officer has them. So we're moving towards every patrol officer having a taser. Anytime that we can put something in the hands of a police officer or every police officer that's out there on the street that is a non-lethal option, it gives them that option. Now, that doesn't guarantee that we are not ever going to be able to, or you have to use lethal force, but it reduces the chance. And that's the goal of all of these non-lethal devices, is to try and think ahead of the game and also get devices that could work in some situations. And there also is what's important to notate about the term non-lethal. These are devices that are not designed or typically thought of as causing something lethal to happen or even serious injury. So also we're moving towards pepper ball launchers for violent and armed encounters. Again, that's another device that will broadcast a very concentrated amount of, as you're familiar with pepper spray, this is a pepper powder, and it launches a ball that has that in it. So the idea behind that is that you can be further away from people, use it. So, for example, if someone had a knife and you were able to use that to disarm them. Again, it can't guarantee anything, but our idea behind that is to get more of those devices out there on the street to use in these encounters. We also use it to train on these devices. We're using a lot of scenario-based training. So it's decision-making and scenarios built into one. So an officer doesn't always go into the situation in the scenario training and use a weapon or a gun or whatever. The idea is that there's a decision-making portion of it to help train basically good judgment with it, as well as the proper use of it. Another part of the police category is our special operations and our op strategies fund. We have had this for several years, but it continues to be something that we want to move forward and use each year. The special operations fund, again, for the op strategies, has used crews at sometimes for operations that are specific to problems and problem areas. Our thought is that crime is a problem, but we focus on the specific crime. We focus on the specific problem. We look at what people report to the police department. We look at what people tell us is important to them as a crime that's being conducted in a community, and we want to tailor our operations towards working on that problem. So, for example, if we have we notice a lot of reports of stolen vehicles in the neighborhood. We watch those. We do crime reports very daily, basically within the department, and we map it out and we look at where trends are at. So we want to use that fund to be able to focus officers on that area. We don't necessarily always have enough officers working to be able to do that. They can sometimes in the day, but not every time. So when we focus a special crew to go out and handle that, they can focus on it. Some of the other examples of special operations and pop strategies is like what we have noticed in the trend in mental health. There's been more need for mental health operations on the police level. So one of the things that we saw as a trend is to use CIT training, crisis intervention training, to combat that issue and that problem, so the better trained officers. So those are some of the examples of what a POP strategy is, and some examples of how we would use that special operation fund. We also will work with community members, but also the neighborhood improvement officers, things like that. We've done several different types of operations over the last several years. If you guys are interested in any of those specifics, myself as city administrator can provide you with operational plans that we've had and some of the statistics I have. The next one is, of course, what is the big thing in law enforcement right now is recruitment and retention. There is definitely a dip in manpower in law enforcement across the United States. Some communities have chosen to make that, but in our area, in our community, we've just seen that there's less candidates available. Last year we started the hiring incentive program, and that's been valuable to us. We've been able to recruit more of the people that have been finishing first and second in their police academies. We've been able to recruit people from other agencies. We continue to not drop our standards, so it's been harder to get applicants, but due to that, I believe the hiring incentive program has helped us attract folks along the way that they see as something to come to our agency to get that incentive. We also continue to improve our department culture and environment. I'm going to talk more about the culture and some of the effects of leadership later on in this. But, everything from how great our new police station is, to the gym, to all those physical things that people can see and put their hand on when they come to work for us. But it's also developing a culture where we value people and that our personnel are our greatest asset because they go out and they help people every day. So we want to look at that and value that department culture. So those are the two main things that we're going to work on in the future. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit about how leadership plays a role in that. But I found this quote today when I was looking at leadership, and it was from a study the Department of Justice did when they were speaking to smaller police agencies across the United States. I think it really fits into what I view and the department views as our recruitment, retention, and tactics for it. It says that good police departments recognize that a good law enforcement agency reflects the community it serves, takes care of the people who work for it, and understand there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So we're taking a multifaceted approach to make sure that our recruitment retention tactics are on different levels, but ultimately that it leads back to getting the best people we can to do the job here in Sedalia. So another, again, going through some of the things for the future, we'll move on to our community services and engagement. So we want to encourage the community to help solve problems, again, through the problem-oriented policing. So, again, those are reviewing the different crimes and things that we have out there, and engaging the community for the criminal aspect of it, but also we go back to engaging the community to establish relationships, positive relationships. And so we also want to help the public in us understanding where we view our roles within the community. So that the problem-oriented policing helps us move towards that on the criminal side of it, but on the education side of it and the engagement side of it, we look at this next year starting a Citizens Police Academy. We've done this many times in the past, but the demand for it trailed off and we didn't have a whole lot of interest. Over the last 6 to 8 months, I've had a lot of people ask me about it. We're excited that people want to do this again. It's a good time to revamp what we've done in the past and move forward with that in the future, and that's our goal. Granted, we're going to have to wait until there's a good time for it's safe for the community and the officers to do that. So I don't want to set a time and a date for that, but next fiscal year looks promising. We get into 2022. So that's what we hope. I think it'll be a real positive thing through the community, but it also, again, just builds relationships with community members and helps them understand and know what we do as law enforcement on a day-to-day basis and how they can help and we can build off of each other. Again, I said earlier, this may be the last year that I have this up here because of dispatch services moving to the joint communications. The joint communications go live is coming soon. Right now, there's training for new equipment and software, some of it's still being installed. We're trying to coordinate resources between the city and the county right now. We've hired a director who's jumped in and doing a great job. She's working hard to get these services implemented countywide. Part of our role is I serve on the Joint Communications Board, so we help oversee and establish operations. The plan is that January 1, our dispatchers will become county employees, but they still will work out of our joint communications, or our communications center, in the basement, because there's still work to be done on equipment and training in the new center, which is literally just a wall apart. So that's what we see the future. We're hoping that this can go live in March or April. We should be at that point to combine the two together. It's been a difficult path this year with COVID because we've ran into a lot of delays with software and hardware vendors because of travel restrictions. That little picture down there is kind of, I always put it in there to be funny, but that is very similar to what it looks like down there. There's 5 to 6 screens, and the dispatchers have to take chaos and put it into words and get it out to the police and fire, and that's what are going to help you people. So, they've got a hard and difficult job, and we appreciate what they do. When it comes to training this year, I actually should have put in-service training on top. And I'm going to talk about it first. So training obviously is a hot topic in law enforcement this year. And one of the things that we base a lot of what we do operationally, or success, I should say, operationally, is our in-service training. That is how we get our state federally required training. That's what we do for our refreshers and those types of things each year. Within that, what we do is we try to keep ahead of the trends. Well, to keep ahead of the trends in in-service training, we watch where all the other training is going. We watch what's going on in the nation, and we respond to that. We also, if you guys remember some of the past, what I've done or spoke about with our use of force, for example. We talked about that in the council meetings early on. Our use of force reports are reviewed throughout the department. Some of the people that review those are our training officers. Those training officers look at how we did, they review body cam footage, and they look at the ways that we can improve in the future with our physical skills and our use of force. That's one example of the many ways that we try to stay ahead of the trends when it comes to in-service training. The second part, and something that that's where we're going this year, and obviously what we see is the future, and it is a part of our department. It ultimately affects our budget because it does affect overtime, it does affect training, the amount to have instructors and things like that. But obviously it pays dividends in the quality of service that we look for. This next year, one of our biggest and probably hardest things that we're going to encounter is we have taken on the, I guess you could say the idea that we are going to host and we are going to use the police leadership, the West Point model. This leadership program, and I'll read you just the basic description of it, is a 3-week course that is a significant commitment in developing leaders in public safety organizations. Materials are based on the psychological interactions between human beings, understanding what the science says about how people relate to one another. Instructors draw upon our collective work, learn through trial and error as leaders to share and recognize best practices. The article application of sound leadership principles that enhance the motivation, satisfaction, and performance of the men and women in our community. So basically, from the chief all the way down to sergeants will attend this. We will build a culture of value in people and leadership. I think we already have that, but we want to build upon that. We want to grow that. We want to host this to outside agencies. This training has been offered all across the United States, some of the major metropolitan areas. We would be one of the smaller agencies doing this type of training. It's currently the closest agencies that are using it. The Kansas Highway Patrol is teaching it now, and also the Missouri State Highway Patrol is teaching it. And at both of those organizations, they've started at the top and worked it down into the lieutenants and sergeants. So our idea is that we will have from chiefs to the sergeants attendants. The idea is, again, it goes back to what I was talking about, building the culture and building the relationship within our department to value people. And so not only does it help us lead through trying times like we're experiencing, but it also helps build that culture within our department that's positive. And what we want to do is keep our good people around and keep making good decisions with sound judgment. One of our last things, and more hardware-related items. It's not as exciting, but it's something that we do have to do. And that's an equipment replacement plan for MCCs. Those are the laptop computers in the police cars. Our newest ones are 4 years old. Our oldest ones are 6 years old. So they are starting to have hard drive fails and things like that. They've reached their end of their life. There's been good quality units through Panasonic, but it's time to look at replacing those. So I put together a plan to try to replace them over the next 2 years. For you guys that don't know, the laptop in the police car acts as kind of a hub for everything. The dash camera runs through it so that they can interact with the dash camera, basically like mark it as evidence, that sort of thing. Turn it on and off, like when they're done with the recording. The mobile software, that's the software that officers receive their calls. So they have to have that. That's communication with police, fire, and EMS. And also it's communication back to dispatch. So like I said, that thing acts as a hub through the department, through the police car, and throughout the interaction with all the public safety side of things. But again, it's a 2-year plan. We're looking at 2 different models for the future, but we've had very good luck with the Panasonic. So where is the future of the department going? So obviously we have to look at our recruitment and retention and value our personnel. Our personnel are, again, our greatest asset. That's one of our main things to remember with the strategic plan. Also is our community engagement. One of our biggest programs for this next year is our Citizens Police Academy, building those relationships and things like that throughout our community and how we can make a difference in our community. And I think it's just really important also right now to have members of our community come in and see what it is like to be in law enforcement. Who knows, maybe we can recruit a few of them, right? But it also would be the time that people understand what it is that law enforcement faces every day. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of things that law enforcement does, probably because they're the only agency that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and are working like that. Fire and EMS are out there, but we're out there on the street. And then finally, on the mental health side of things, what we're working on right now is a program that doesn't impact the budget really, but what we've come up with is basically a pathway to mental health. And our idea behind that is we've started, or actually over the last several years, there's been several different programs trying to combine the resources of mental health. Our idea is to try and plug them in to almost like a timeline, figure out a way to plug our resources all the way from the full-time agencies that do mental health every day to law enforcement, to the hospital, all of that, and where it plugs into the pathway getting someone healthy in mental health system. Also, our idea behind that is get our whole community, and when I say community, even outside of Pettis County, so we want to involve all the organizations that are in Pettis County to get some of the other law enforcement agencies that utilize the resources, such as the hospital in Pettis County, so that when we all go to the hospital for a mental health situation, then whether it's the WPD or another organization outside of Pettis County, we all do the same thing. I think that'll help the efficiency of this pathway to mental health, but it'll also help operations at the hospital, so we all understand what we're doing and what our role is along the way. I believe we can also work towards focusing our resources and the idea of getting people more efficiently moved through the system. And hopefully less folks will fall through the cracks of the system along the way. So that's the future as I see it. And is there any questions?
Council, any questions?
Okay, well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I know I talk a little too long sometimes, but I will thank everyone for their support. I thank the community. I thank the council and mayor and city administrator. It has been a tough year. And on this December 7th, the day that will live in infamy, as President Roosevelt said many, many years ago, I think this year will probably live in infamy for all of us. So it's been a trying time, but as the police department, we don't give up easy. And we're going to continue to be the law enforcement agency that serves this community. And we always support or appreciate the support. No questions?
Okay, thank you. I know I can speak for the council. We have your back.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Jeff Lehman, Public Works.
Your Honor, I have 4 items this evening. The first one we're going to deal with has to do with our rail spur and some change orders. And during the course of this, we've already known about some of this, some of the soil testing that didn't come back, and we had to make some changes to take it off and then remove it and replace it. That part also led to the domino effect of what was happening downstream as the progress was going forward. And that had to do with the problem with where we were going to source some of the support rail track and those things that were getting ready to come in. So required some change orders to be done. One of them has to do with $53,318.36 for Capital Railroad contracting. And if I believe I read this right, that has to do with where we had to change the freight different and all that kind of things that were happening. And then Hill Hardy, which is, I'm assuming is the company that we did the great work, shall we say, with.
Yes.
And that amounted to $159,281.70. Within our actual contracting and stuff and our grants and everything we have involved with this, there is some room for this to all happen. We wanted to do this as quickly as possible. It was done under a mayoral emergency order because we decided at that time. So we're asking for now, for tonight, that we back up the mayor on that and go ahead and approve these changes.
Any questions from council? Arlene, read the ordinance, please.
Okay, the first ordinance is bill number 2020-214. An ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 1.1 signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Capital Railroad Contracting Incorporated to allow for rail spur component storage for delivery and additional labor to meet required rail spur installation dates.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Bill number 2020-214, an ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 1.1 signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Capital Railroad Contracting Incorporated to allow for rail spur component storage, delivery, and additional labor to meet the required rail spur installation date.
Final passage.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster is absent.
Actually, I see that Ms. Foster is on now.
Okay. Foster?
I believe you're muted, Ms. Foster. That's the one. It shows she's not connected to audio, so.
Go ahead.
Okay. We'll mark her absent for this vote. Bliss?
Yes.
Lehman?
Yes.
Oldham?
Yes.
Dawson?
Yes.
Goddard?
Yes.
And Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, so 7 yes and 1 absent.
So any questions on the next ordinance? Read the ordinance, please, Orman.
Bill number 2020-215, an ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 3 signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Phillips Hardy Incorporated for unsuitable soil work north of Saline Street and east of Mill Street for the rail spur track bed and track A debris removal near the Washington Street Bridge in the city of Sedalia, Missouri.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Bill number 2020-215, an ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 3 signed between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Phillips Hardy Incorporated for unsuitable soil work north of Saline Street and east of Mill Street for the rail spur track bed and track A debris removal near the Washington Street Bridge in the city of Sedalia, Missouri.
Final passage.
Roll call, please.
Foster?
Chief, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think she may be in the listen-only mode. She's trying to get her grandfather, and she's driving, so I think she just wants to be able to listen.
Okay.
Okay, so Foster is absent. Bliss?
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bobbit,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross. There's 7 yes and 1 absent.
So the final ordinance, any questions? Read the ordinance, Arlene, please.
Bill number 2020-216, an ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 4 by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Phillips Party Incorporated for the removal of unsuitable soils south of Saline Street on each turnout for the rail spur track A and B.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2020-216, an ordinance ratifying, approving, and accepting change order number 4 by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Phillips Party Incorporated for the removal of unsuitable soil south of Saline Street on each turnout for the rail spur track A and B.
Final passage.
Have a second? Roll call, please.
Blake,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bobbit,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross. And Foster is absent, so that's 7 yes and 1 absent.
Next item I have has to do with an agreement with ACRT. It's a tree inventory system in the amount of $7,410. We've done this for quite a few years in a row, if I can recall. What it involves is we do an inventory of trees, and it allows us to take the inventory and also what we need to do with them and actually replant at certain points in time. I don't know if there's any other questions on this. This has been this way for many, many years, so we've done it.
Any questions from the council? Arlene, go ahead, read the ordinance, please.
Bill number 2020-217, an ordinance approving and accepting an agreement by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and ACRT Incorporated for a tree re-inventory of approximately 1,950 city park and right-of-way trees.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Bill number 2020-217, an ordinance approving and accepting an agreement by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and ACRT Incorporated for a tree re-inventory of approximately 1,950 city park and right-of-way trees.
Final passage.
Have a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Lehman,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bobbit,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster is absent, and Bliss.
Yes.
So that's 7 yes and 1 absent.
My next item, the third item, has to do with a final phase of the streetscape project. If you've been downtown lately, you notice that the light pedestals are finally being put into place in this last part of the project. As we were doing this, Evergy has asked that we move one of the meters away from their power poles as we're doing this. And that cost is roughly $1,254.44. And the staff is recommending we do this as we get down to this final phase.
In this phase of this, we are now owning these, we're buying these streetlights. And we're going to continue that project all the way through and convert those to LEDs and try to purchase those in our next budget year. Any questions from council? Read the ordinance, please.
Bill number 2020-218, an ordinance approving and accepting change order number 1 by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri and Myers Electric Incorporated for the streetscape phase 4 street light meter pedestal relocation and installation 10 feet away from an Evergy power pole.
Second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2020-218, an ordinance approving and accepting change order number 1 by and between the city of Sedalia, Missouri, and Meyer Electric Incorporated for the streetscape Phase 4 street light meter pedestal relocation and installation 10 feet away from an evergreen power pole.
Final passage?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Holden,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster is absent, Bliss,
Yes.
and Lehman,
Yes.
he's 7 yes and 1 absent.
Our final thing is a DDRA grant. It's an application that we are going to ask to do. It has to do with the submission of this grant. The DDRA stands for Diesel Emission Reduction Act. Actually, the money came from this, and if you all recall, the big lawsuit against Volkswagen. And I believe it's administered by the Department of Transportation in the state of Missouri. Brenda, am I right on that one? Okay, we're close. Anyways, it's within the state. And what happens here is we will apply for this, and then we're allowed, as we go forward and replacing some of our vehicles, if we get this, we can apply for that, and the grant applies. Some of that money applies towards that. The cost to do this, if we do get this, cost sharing would be $257,291. Brenda, would you like to add anything to that, or? Okay. It's just for us to go forward to apply for it, see what happens.
Any questions on this resolution?
I have a question. The Volkswagen people, are they sharing in this expense? I mean, you mentioned that.
Yeah, the money comes into the state. It comes from that lawsuit, the settlement. And then I think each state, if I remember right, way back when that first thing happened, each state got a portion of what that settlement was, and they're allowed to distribute it within the state.
So the grant, we pay for 25% of the replacement vehicle. 75% would come from the city. And the only thing we have to do is, that vehicle has to get scrapped. It can't be removed. So what we did when we looked at, was this the efficient for the city, we looked at the value if we sold the vehicle for the gun deal, and determined whether the grant portion would be larger. And in each case, on these 3 vehicles, we would receive more through the grant than through selling the salvage one.
Any other questions? Arlene, read the resolution, please.
Resolution 1918, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Sedalia, Missouri, authorizing the submission of the Diesel Emission Reduction Act DDRA grant application by the city with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources Air Pollution Control program to replace public works vehicles to reduce air emissions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Your Honor, that's all I have this evening.
Committee Bill, Andrew Dawson.
Got one item on the agenda. It's the resolution regarding the historic preservation plan. What this resolution does is it accepts and supports the historic preservation plan and also folds that into the comprehensive plan. I would encourage everybody here to get a copy of it and take a look at it because it's got a very interesting historic narrative, and then it's also got our path forward in there. So.
Any questions from the council? Arlene, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution number 1919, a resolution accepting and supporting the adoption of the historic preservation plan as part of the new comprehensive plan for the city of Sedalia, Missouri.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I need a second.
We go second. Second.
Thank you, thank you. And I have updated everyone on their committee assignments with the change of, everybody understands that, correct? Now we have a presentation of the Prentiss County COVID-19 Task Force. Commissioner David Dick is the chairman of that. Is David available?
I'm here. Can you hear me, John?
Yes, sir. But David, you go ahead
Yeah.
and introduce your
Hello,
presentation.
everyone. This is a little different, so I hope y'all can hear me okay. Kelvin, can you nod your head and say it's okay?
Yep. We can hear you?
Good. Well, I'll go ahead. As you know, the COVID task force is a group put together from the city side and the county side. I can tell you who the folks are. On our side, I'm obviously the chairman. The mayor is part of the group. Kelvin's part of the group. My two counterparts, Jim and Israel, are both on there. Skip Smith, coroner. Philip Sawyer, the prosecuting attorney. Chief Harrell and Chief Wirt, Sheriff Bond, Captain Rowe and Captain Hargrave, because that's both sides of the sheriff's office. Hannah Starton and Lori Whiteman from the hospital. Trish Ruda, our EMA director, and then Amber Bridges, who tracks our SEMA things, and Kristen Anderson, our commission assistant, to try to keep everything in track, and James Tyson. Those are who all are on it. We've been meeting every week since February. The task force was developed to coordinate essential services in Pettis County surrounding the COVID-19 outbreak. The task force main goal was and is to protect our hospital and healthcare delivery system, so there are resources to care for all those needing care in the community. After last week's call, it was apparent we're not quite accomplishing this goal to the degree we should, and we need to slow the spread of the virus. As partners, we probably have not done as good a job of sharing direct insight into the stress and toll the pandemic has taken on our hospital and first responders. So we have put together a short video to share with you what some of our task force members are facing each and every day, and then you'll hear from a couple of presenters that are there with you. And so, Kelvin, I think the video.
Hello, I'm Sarah Hopper, Unit Manager of Critical and Progressive Care at Rockwell Hospital. Welcome to my CCU. May I never see you here. COVID-19 has been a battle we are all fighting, and it's getting harder and harder to fight it here. I have the best staff anybody could ever ask for. We are a wonderful team, a cohesive team, but they are tired. We don't know when we come in. Are we going to lose someone today? Are we going to put somebody on the ventilator today? Is someone going to make it today? We have to look and see and do everything we can to save these people, and sometimes it's not enough. My staff is concerned. They have nightmares at night with them. They're concerned they're going to take it home to their loved ones. And if someone in the family gets COVID-19, their first thought was, I gave it to them. As good as we are with our PPE, as strict as we are with our hand hygiene and trying very hard not to take it home, we're terrified that that is going to happen. My staff is worn out. They are tired, but they are here for you as much as we can be. On a personal note, I am terrified and concerned about taking it home to my in-laws, to my parents and my sister, who all have health problems. Most of them have health problems. I am not the only one in this situation. We are all terrified, and we all have loved ones that we are trying to protect. Please protect yourselves so I don't have to see you in my house.
Did you want the one from Martin now? Is that the plan?
I would say go ahead, Kelvin.
This is Joanne Martin, and I'm the administrator of the Pettis County Health Center. Many times we hear that the numbers we post just seem to be numbers. They don't seem to be real. The numbers have increased dramatically as this virus. Just pretty well in March, April, May, June. But on the 16th of June, all the restrictions were lifted. We were 5 times higher than the number of cases. These are real people. These are real community members who've been impacted by COVID-19. Each chart represents one community member. We've had more cases in November than we had from March through October. This is our nightmare. This is what the health center deal with 7 days a week. They're people. We talk to them. We follow them. We worry about them. We've checked on them. We've gone to their house when they didn't sound our own. We've rejoiced with them when they come home. And we've cried with their families. This is my personal nightmare too, because I have a husband who's very high risk. And I worry all the time that he will be close to that one person who did not have COVID-19, and that he somehow becomes infected. This is what we all worry about for all of our families, because we live this every day. We know what's happening in our community. Each one of those charts represents an individual who lived in our county, who is no longer with us. Chair at Christmas dinner. Please take care. Please watch out for your neighbor. Please protect yourself.
David, you can introduce your next and everyday.
I think our next speaker is going to be Dr. Sharp, and then following him will be Eric Dirk, who's also on the task force, and then Lori Whiteman will round it up.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. And clearly, I'm going to take down my mask. I think I'm away from it. Dr. Jeffrey Sharp has been a physician here today for 32 years. I wear many hats and like to give my perspective of the novel coronavirus in several different facets of my life. Part-time emergency room physician, family physician, school board member, and its impact on my family. I did not concur with my new employer about this speech. Our medical system is on the verge of being. I'm going to repeat that. Our medical system is on the verge of being overwhelmed. In 35 years of medicine, I never had to work with research. Initially, personal protective equipment was by SARS, and a lot of other providers, both patients and staff safety. In our larger cities, the medium cities, not just covered today. At any given point in time, our hospital medical staff has more patients who need our care than we have room staff to attend. Cleaned up to 20 COVID patients in the course of the ER shift. I had to transfer up to 6 patients in a day because of lack of room, or room staff to care for COVID. I sent one patient as far as St. Louis, died. We cannot believe this stress placed upon physicians, nurses, and respiratory therapists when we do not have enough room to care for these patients. Hospitals are full and unknown, especially for intensive care unit beds. Is the patients that I'm intubating passing the virus to me or the nurses? Am I taking it home to my family? Sharing and changing clothes in the basement before coming upstairs to get home. As a family physician treating COVID patients in the office, additionally, I didn't want anything to do with it. Send them elsewhere. I don't want to send them to my office. Test them across the street. Then the realization that someone asked me, how can I turn my back on patients who trust me for over 30 years? Initially, I didn't know anything about the virus. I a lot of reasons to learn about how best to treat these patients. Emotional drain is impossible to describe as watching the virus and short lives of fairly healthy patients later. COVID death is a woman. Message received. Most institutions do not allow visitors to see the dying patient. Sometimes toward the end, one family member is allowed to see them. If you get COVID, someone died at one. As a school board member trying to plan the school year, meetings to listen to the public about what is safe, what is expected, emotional toll on children, no mask, in-seat education, virtual education, the list goes on. Thus far, we've been fairly lucky with the students, we've had issues with illness among teachers, custodians, food service workers, and other adult staff. We never had that substitute teacher. Quite overlooked, we're quite satisfying efforts to keep most of the kids going to some semblance of normalcy.
Message received.
I lost my father-in-law to the virus August 31st. He was 90, getting frail, still living at home with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, his gallbladder was bad. He thought the virus had KU and it brought him down. My mother's in an Alzheimer's unit in Columbia. This summer, she knew my name. Last week, I'm not sure she recognized me. Whether this is from not being able to visit with her in person or the natural progression of the disease, I do not know. Her unit currently has 10 COVID patients. I'm told the whole institution will be transferring their COVID patients to my mother's unit. She's currently there. 3 of black. Will she be the next? My oldest daughter had twin boys named first. Because of the COVID restriction, only her husband could be with her. She missed the emotional support of her mother being there. We have a pseudo-mask ordinance in this county. It is verifully followed. I've been in businesses that enforce it quite well, other places it is quite lax. I can only believe that this is contributing to the rampant spread of the virus. Before the late great flying this bill, wearing masks, this shit is real. Any questions?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Good evening. I first want to begin by thanking each of you for your time this evening. Your service to the community and your attention is greatly appreciated by all of us on the task force. My name is Eric Dirk. I've been with Presque County District since summer 2013, which is when we started operations. I currently have the honor of serving as its EMS chief since 2017. I started my career in EMS 25 years ago after my second daughter was born with CAP for heart, extremely underdeveloped. She received a heart transplant in 10 months, and her heart held out for 4.5 years. But it was ultimately a simple little virus, much like the one we have today, that took her life after a 3-month battle on Venus, I think it was some 22 years ago. So I'll come back to that in a moment. I have to take that in small bits. For now, I'd like to switch gears and tell you how this is affecting your immune system, what's going on there, how this works, what we're experiencing right now. Right now, 1 out of every 4 patients we transport is currently COVID positive. So clearly 1 for location. We do an extensive decontamination procedure after every single call, every known or potentially infected patient. It's the same thing. This includes taking showers. Crews have to take a go bag with them, so if they have to change of clothes, sometimes 2 or 3 times. We apply UV lights to that in front of the ambulances. They have longer with clothes, of course. A lot of the PPE has to be, that was intended for single use, is being treated somehow and used over and over until sometimes, in some cases, it falls apart even before the CDC is set up. Just because, it's sweat, it gets hot. We wipe down every surface with whatever cleaning there is in bath or at that moment. And some staff have actually been required to take 7 to 8 showers in one single shower. So this is making us crazy. Our hair's falling out there. But I mean, it really is. It's not uncommon for us to be notified of an exposure well active transport as they head in, but the hospitals will get a hold of us when that happens. On every one of these calls, we fill out workers' compensation forms, just in case that crew member should become ill or worse. As for our costs, insurance, Medicare reimbursements do not increase by any meaningful amount. I think it's a 10% a year or a couple of percent. However, our costs have increased dramatically. PPE costs this year have went up when it's available, and we now have to use much more of it on every single patient, not just the COVID positive patients, but on every patient. Just our oxygen alone, we have increased 30% from last year, while our actual call volume from April through the end of November has went down by 2.2%. So we're using more oxygen, doing more respiratory care on less patients. It's worth noting that in my 25 years in EMS, call volume has now gone down. It just doesn't go that direction. It increases about 4% every single year. So that's unusual. 20% more of our patients require some sort of oxygen or respiratory care just in general. So we have a lot more respiratory calls than last year. Our stations have been highly restricted. We have detailed infection control procedures. In the hospital, I call it choreography. It's really the dance we do with our staff to safely get the patient from the ambulance into the hospital without our crews going in and causing more viral shedding. Literally every aspect of our operation has had to change because of this pandemic issue. The average age of our staff, as for the staff, the average age is increasing. That's good because it keeps more experienced people on staff, but with that age increase comes additional risk factors. Their physical and emotional toll has been expensive, although probably likely a measure. We already see a lot of PTSD in EMS. This is just adding another layer of that to it. So while the district is taking extraordinary precautions to protect our crews and their families, we're getting sick right along everyone else. Out of our 70 full and part-time staff, 10 of them have been infected with COVID. 9 of them just in the last 2 months. So even with that increased PPE usage, high-quality ventilators, personal respirators, CPR assist devices, special air scrubbers for our units and stations, we're still getting sick, and we're watching our community get sicker and sicker. Right now, there are vast numbers of citizens in our district who struggle daily with high-risk conditions, not just organ transplants like in my daughter's case, but diabetes, chronic hypertension, leukemia, hepatitis, those patients that are on chemical or radiation therapy. That list just goes on and on. And it is those people in specific that we all must work to protect. As for my story, the words terrified or overwhelmed just don't seem to cut it when I'm trying to express how I feel if my daughter were alive today. How on earth would I explain this to her? I just don't know. But in closing, it's simply my hope that some of these numbers and stories will help inform and assist you in making decisions which might help lead us out of this public health crisis. I ask for your help in keeping our district safe from the spread of this awful and unpredictable. I thank you for your time.
I am wrap this up to you guys. This is what I know, that none of us can assume there will be a hospital bed for us if we need one for any reason, whether it's COVID or COVID, or if there will be a bed in the emergency. That is where we are, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. In the past 2 weeks, we've had to transfer 19 patients from our community here due to an ICU or economic insult or having unstaffed beds in other areas. That is not counting people that Dr. Sharp was talking about that wait for hours in the ED, boarded in the ED, waiting for that to open up in our hospital. We need our community's help in slowing the spread of this virus. And that is the objective that the COVID task force has tonight. I'm just asking for the community support in slowing the spread. And we thank the council for giving us the time and an already very full agenda on Friday night. And we welcome any questions we may have for any of us that are here or for any that are on the video conference.
So that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
David, are you still here? So anybody from the audience like to say something to us tonight about anything, good, bad, indifferent? Come forward to the podium and please give your name, address. Speak clearly and loudly.
Okay, can you hear me? Hi, my name is Heather Slagle. I live at 2506 Dennis Road. And I have several questions. I understand that our school district has made some decisions, but even during that time period, I asked for the scientific studies that supported mask mandates, because I haven't found them. And I presented several studies to Dr. Sharp to the contrary, and we see we're actually not increased infection rates. So numbers and truth can be found in the science. And that's all I ask, is that if you have the science, policy needs to follow the science. Nobody wants to see the continuation of the COVID virus. But the truth is going to be found in early outpatient treatment. It's going to be found with solutions like hydroxychloroquine. It's going to be found with zinc. We have the science on those studies, and it works. So why don't we do something that works and pretending that this works because it doesn't? That's what I have to say. Follow the science.
Thank you. Anyone else? I didn't mean to bypass the council, city administrator. Oh, we have someone else? Please come forward.
My name is Christy Dews. I'm at 33032 Highway U. Okay. I do have a question about Joanne Martin's video. She made the statement that restrictions were lifted this summer. I'm curious about that because I haven't gone into a restaurant or a business in town that hasn't had a sign saying that that's mandated, despite the fact that that never really was clarified if it was a suggestion or a mandate. So if we're claiming that restrictions were lifted, why are there still signs in the majority of our businesses in Pettis County? My other question would be, my comment would be, we are requiring masks in schools, we are requiring masks in hospitals, we are requiring masks in most public places to the public knowledge, and yet we're seeing a video of stacks of cases and cases and cases and cases. If masks are required, why are those signs up? If people are wearing masks, why are those cases going up? Doesn't make sense. There's not a lot of logic in that. So I would simply ask you before you decide that masks need to be the order of the day, let's look at the facts, the real facts, not what people are trying to convince you is the truth. Thank you.
May I answer?
Anyone else?
This is Joanne Martin.
I didn't want to, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak for those who are able to wear masks. My sister, she has all kinds of, she's run into a lot of instances where she had to go through a lot of pain because of this process.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you give your name and address?
I'm Charity and White. I live in Smithton, 33612 Leavenworth Road. Anyway, my sister, she's gone through a lot because of this, with anxiety and depression. We worry a lot about suicide, and so I just want to make sure that those people are also considered when considering, the mask issue.
I also worry about my kids, their faces being hidden. I feel like that's a safety precaution that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. And other people's faces also being hidden, that concerns me. And so those are a few things that I thought for now. Thank you.
So council, if I asked you, do you want any council members or Kelvin, any comments?
Well, yeah, I guess I would add that, we've heard some pretty impassionate speeches and pretty impassionate effects of where we're at. And it's not, I don't think anybody in there was all about masks. It's about doing social distancing. If you can't wear if you can't wear a mask or you don't want to wear a mask, social distancing. I mean, there's other alternatives. What I heard anyway, there's more about, what this virus looks like and where we're at in terms of the strain it's putting on our healthcare workers, real people, seeing real death, seeing real illnesses. And it's about not debating this, not bringing up the debate again. It's about, let's do what we can. Let's social distance. Let's do the hygiene. And if you can't social distance, please wear a mask. I think that's the plea, I guess, from my standpoint.
Anybody else in the council want to make a comment?
No, I do. We certainly can support all our healthcare workers. And we need to get a message out strongly that we do. And this is just me personally, what we know that we have a wave coming at us. If we look at the things that have been said in the last couple of weeks. So I guess one thing I'd like to do is state and make sure that our healthcare workers know. And I want to ask Lori and Dr. Sharp to tell us if there's other things that we can do. I'll personally say, just like Kelvin said, wash your hands, do your social distancing. It's extremely important for our community to do that. Mandate it, if we mandate it, we can't enforce it. We start fining people. But I think we really need to make sure that what Lori said is a good side one last time. That is, this is not just about COVID. If one of us is in a car wreck when we leave here, there's a good chance that we can't be like Bob was. It affects all of us, in a variety of different ways. So we all need to, as a community, participate, wear masks out of respect for our healthcare workers and for the people that are on the front lines for us every day. Frame it a different way.
Anybody else?
Steve, I'm going to step in here a little bit. I kind of agree with you in the support that we have out there. They need to realize that we do support. The word mandate creates a division. Yeah. And what this really boils down to is our overall, as a community, compassion for our fellow men. If you're out there and you wear a mask, that's your right to wear that mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, in my opinion, then it's also your right. But that's also a two-way street on both sides. If you're not going to wear a mask, then make a real effort to maintain that 6, sometimes 8 feet away from the people that have the mask on. Use some common sense, people, and have that compassion for your fellow men.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Mark Ross?
I think too, if we all use common sense, wearing a mask and to do the distance. I know if you go to Menards, you don't have a mask, they'll run you out of it. It happened to me.
I went in there real quick about a month ago, and, I grabbed a couple things and asked me if I had a mask, and I said, no. I said, can I just take this and leave? He said, no, you have to leave. So they get a mask. So I'd like for all businesses to do that. Say, you know, you're not allowed to come in my business unless you have a mask. It's common sense. It's like Jeff said.
Anybody else?
I got something I want to say. My uncle died recently. Face down, intubated, saying goodbye to his kids over the phone. I don't wish that on anybody, nobody here. So I would appeal to the better angels of our nature and just say, love your neighbor, do whatever it takes, go above and beyond to protect them.
Okay. On a positive note, you know, vaccines are right around the corner. And we have more therapeutic medications available, and the hospital has a limited amount of that, but thinks those are positive things that we're developing. We as the medical community.
Your Honor, as long as we're a little bit going on in this discussion, could I have, Lori, could you come back up?
One more comment. Okay. Something that's not been mentioned is I would encourage everyone to get the flu vaccine. Because if you get the flu, it knocks you down, this virus is out, it's like a one-two punch. So I would encourage everyone to get a flu vaccine.
Lori, my question is going to be addressed to you. In recent life, and I believe it's Thursday or Friday, the governor announced that we were seeking outside help to come into this. How will that affect us here locally?
We actually have a phone call tomorrow with the governor's office around the details, but using the VPN, the outside staffing firm, is only available to those hospitals that have added an additional bed and additional unit. While we have 2 different units designated for COVID patients, we did not add additional beds. So it's only available to those hospitals that have added a whole number of units. We have put in for DMAS, with disasters. They are helping nursing homes right now across the state. We're okay with getting travelers, traveling med techs, radiology techs, and local nurses. But now as their contracts come up, they're going to mostly Texas systems, but others where there's a bidding war going on with the traveling nurses and other healthcare professionals. And so as those contracts come up, we're having a hard time finding travelers. The one that Governor talked about is available. He had a number of how many hospitals has said on the survey that was taken earlier this month. Yes, we've added an additional new unit. And it's what capacity. Right now, staffing are currently.
One thing that the staff has done, Lori has done, is they've increased what they call a COVID pay to reward those people in the hospital that are working desperately daily, for all staff, I think.
Yeah.
Except administrative staff. I think.
Do you know off the top of your head how many we have out right now with employees out with COVID?
Let's see. Well, I have 11 new people this week. So I have the 13 I had last week and then the 11 this week that were positive for COVID. So 20 to 30. We mirror what's going on in the community.
Ann Richardson would like to make a comment.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, Lori, what do you recommend as services in the community that we use kind of slow to do? Because I know we hear a variety of ideas.
You know, and when I look at how we ask all of our employees who became infected, where do you think you were exposed? And of the 100, we had, well, it's about 13% of our employees had COVID. There's only, I can count on two hands, you know, how many said they were exposed to some, a patient at work. I don't think people are getting COVID at work or at school. It's all the things we do otherwise. They may have been exposed to a coworker that was positive, but it's when they went out after work, or when they go in the car together, without masks on, or without a window crack, and they went shopping, or they had a party, they had a baby shower, and they all congregated together. So it's really sitting together in groups of non-household members, not keeping our distance, sitting around the table and eating and singing. We have some groups, civic groups, sing. That's a high-risk activity when you're standing right next to them. And they're not wearing masks when they're supposed to. And while masks are not perfect, they do flow with that.
And they do have the safety going forward that where, and the person, you know. It reduces the viral load that you are exposed to. That's why in my theory, from why we have so many asymptomatics, because it was just a small amount of virus they were exposed to. Anyway, and I did want to put one more plug in for the others. We just received 2 weeks ago, and this is also coming to us via the federal government, via the state, is monoclonal antibody therapy. And it is a targeted antibody therapy that's been engineered. So unlike the convalescent plasma that provides antibodies from people that have had COVID infections, but you get all the other antibodies too. This is engineered in a lab type drug that is specific to the coronavirus. We have 2 different kinds, one made by Eli and one made by the Regeneron, that we do have limited doses, but these are for people that have mild COVID infection, but you want to keep their high risk for becoming moderate to severe. So people over 55 with chronic disease. And we give it, and these are people that don't require hospitalization. They're still in the mild phases. Ideally, it should be given within 3 days of developing symptoms, up to 10. But it has the most effect of reducing that person's risk of being hospitalized due to COVID by 75%. So we're trying to get the word out.
So G on that is,
so if you test positive,
get the test as soon as possible, and they can cover it around time. And
yeah, and it's a 1-hour infusion, and we have an outpatient infusion area that will bring you to 1 hour infusion, 1 hour of observation. We have probably 60 doses right now, but we don't know how many arrive every week, but they've been arriving every week. 1 week we have 17, next week we get 30. So, and this will be the 3rd week that we receive. So,
Well, there's an issue in my mind. I'll give you an example of a friend of mine. You mentioned within a few days of your notification. Okay. The problem is, if somebody takes the test, it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 days to get the results back, and that seems to be a long time.
we've been, for the last 3 months, we've been averaging about 24, sometimes 48 hours. We got the testing in-house the end of September, and but even Quest is the one we've been in Quest. It's 24 to 48. There was a period of time right before Thanksgiving when everyone was getting tested because they were going ground out. That Quest was 4 to 5 days. If you went to Walgreens, it was even longer. But we still were averaging 24 hours.
For us here. Okay.
so
That's why we can keep expanding.
Eric brought this up when he was talking. That kind of got my attention about him not being notified, which our police force, our fire department. The testing results, how does it get back? Early on, as I was following this, it was only going to the county when it was getting distributed back out, early on. And I don't know how you're doing it now, but these people, when the test is out, it needs to come to them yesterday.
Yes, and right now, it's the physician or somebody in our walk-in clinic, that is calling, as soon as they get the result, they're calling the person.
To the person that's affected.
Yes.
What about these people that respond to calls? How do they get notified as soon, the process to me is not being done quickly. It's effective. In other words, somebody's tested, they're positive. The time that result is given to that person, let's say that person gets the result on a Saturday, and somebody in that family or that household needs a call on Sunday. Why not need a call from an emergency call, where our first responders?
Oh, I know I've been telling Eric, and he has been, that we treat everybody as if they have COVID. That's what we've been doing in the hospital. I mean, you just have to. I mean, you can't tell by looking at somebody if they're, the ones that are having symptoms are easy. But there's so many that are not having symptoms.
I can address that one a little bit. I think I know where you're
Oh, okay.
Those numbers, specifically the address, impressions, the big addresses are delivered to dispatch, so when they send us out a call, that advises someone in that home. Right. Is possible.
How much of the time lapse is in there?
It's usually about that. Joanne, it's the past week or so, it's delayed maybe 2 days just because of the fall. But we usually find out within a month.
It's doing that.
It's not perfect, but
thank you so much.
The other thing I'd say to that person that is having symptoms, is in a high risk group, we have rapid tests that we can also use if it means that we need to decide sooner rather than later if you're a candidate for monoclonal antibodies. You do have to have a documented positive test, but we could do a rapid test.
Who determines that? For the public knowledge, as we go through this, let's just talk about how we get this information.
Your primary care physician, the walk-in clinic, we've been trying to get that information out about the monoclonal antibodies. Because we don't want to hoard this at all. We want it to be used because it's one more tool in the toolbox to decrease the pressure on our head.
I'm not a healthcare professional, but if I recall, the rapid test is more effective if they're symptomatic. Is that correct?
And it also has a lower risk of having false negatives if when you have such high community spread.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a good time to use a rapid test.
Thank you for coming down.
So, council, we have a motion.
Your Honor, if there's no more to come forward, I make a motion to go to closed session. Second.
Roll call, please, Arlene.
Freeman,
I'm still here.
Oakland,
Here.
Dawson,
Here.
Albert. Here. Lucas.
Yes.
Richardson. Richardson.
Lucas?
Here.
I'll turn it off.
And Frost.
Yes.
Frost, Sylvester, and Blair.
Here.
Oh, yeah, I see.
We have several lines on the Randy, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Councilman Richardson,
Yes.
I need to send you a link to the closed door, so you somewhere where you can get an email.
Yeah,
All right, I'll shoot you a link, so if you watch for that, then I'll hang up this session and log you into the closed door session.
sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.